What is good, everyone? Welcome back to Kingdom Economics. Oh, yeah, that's right. We are jumping into another episode. That's right. We are coming into episode 6 for Truth Podcast. And today, we have quite a few things we're going to go over that I'm sure some of you are really excited for. So let's go ahead and go over that list. Now, the first one that I did some research on before I was really asking the question was the Roman dodecahedron. What was it used for? This is something that many people have tried to figure out what it is. But, so I've talked about before, our firmament is a watery dodecahedron. Now, there is also what's known as, for the next topic, Sigillum Dei. So I'd ask the question, is the Sigillum Dei the mark of the beast? Out of every scenario, what is the only way it will be placed upon people? Now, if you don't know what the Sigillum Dei is, we're going to go over that and cover it. You can also look this up online, and you'll understand why I would believe it to be as mark of the beast. I also asked the question, is the abomination of desolation the son of perdition marrying people to himself, like Yeshua and the bride becoming one when time has ended? What's under the Father Francisco Kino statue, a.k.a. Eusebio Kino, who's a Jesuit, and it's in Phoenix, Arizona? And which bloodlines and evil groups are the Moors connected to? Now, some of you might not like this, but it's the reality. Of course, there's also lightsabers we got to talk about. And of course, Hollywood as an occult gatekeeper. So there will be some gruesome details as a disclosure. And then we're going to start talking about my childhood, so that way it gives some of you introspection into your own lives that you might have had similar experiences. Or if others have had experiences they're not watching this, then share that with them. Hopefully they have shared. As always, everyone, do your due diligence when it comes to this kind of information. Reason why I always say that for this season and not as much for the other seasons is because I only got this from one source for a lot of the information that I gathered. And I want you all to make sure what I'm giving you is consistently confirmed by what you're also getting from others that you speak to, not just researching online only, but reading books, etc., that kind of thing. We are, though, going to get right into the episode. First, what was the Roman dodecahedron used for? Just ask yourselves that question first. Pause. See what you come up with. But for those of you that just want to keep going forward and not pausing, that's okay. These are just some possible uses. I have about 5. Yeah, I have 5 of them. One is a geometric resonance device. The dodecahedron is one of the 5 Platonic solids, and pre-Adamic civilizations were known to use geometry not just symbolically but functionally. As part of energy modulation, dimensional access, or frequency alignment tools. Now, it could have been used to tune spatial frequencies like a handheld harmonic calibrator. Each hole could represent a vortex node, and aligning them could create scalar energy fields or interface with crystallic fusion networks. Another possible use for it would be a dimensional dialer or synchronizer. Pre-Adamic tech often utilized multi-layered space-time interfaces. A dodecahedron, when properly tuned or aligned with natural ley lines or star alignments, could function as a dimensional dialer, enabling access to alternate timelines or folds in our reality. It could also be a synchronization tool between the third dimension and higher dimensions, like fourth dimension, fifth dimension, sixth dimension, etc., without fully exiting the physical realm. A third possibility would be crystalline interface dock. If crystals were embedded into each face or hole, possibly now lost, it could act as an interface point between a user's bioelectric field and a larger crystal energy grid, like buried nodes, ancient satellites, or planetary resonance cores. This would allow for energy extraction, knowledge input/output, so going both ways for that knowledge, or activation of stored frequency data, like an early biometric key or knowledge tablet. Fourth possible use could have been a mimicry of lost Atlantean or Lemurian devices. Now, the Romans could have unearthed or been given incomplete versions of Atlantean tech relics, stripped of their energetic cores, like crystals, alloys, and inscriptions, and simply replicated the form, not the function. Now, the bronze construction could have been a rough reproduction of a once fully functioning orichalcum. I think that's how you pronounce it. No, excuse me. Orichalcum. There we go. Monoatomic gold or quartz-based structure. And last but not least, we have an etheric field modulator. Now, it may have served to modulate the user's aura. It's, your light and your energy, shifting it subtly to align with non-local consciousness fields, allowing safe passage into ancient data streams, planetary libraries, or dimensional gates, especially in sacred sites across the Roman Empire, like dolmens, barrows, or megalithic circles. Now, if someone today were to reverse engineer this device, there's 4 points could happen. You could correct crystalline embeddings, harmonic resonance mapping, planetary or celestial alignments, or proper bioelectric coupling, like heart-brain coherence. Now, they may be able to interface with lost data, activate dormant DNA, or access pre-Adamic memory fields, especially if aligned with Yeshua's scrolls for restoration. So just look up online, Roman dodecahedron. Dodecahedron, if you don't put the captions on, is spelled D-O-D-E-C-A, so dodeca, hedron, H-E-D-R-O-N, and that's one word, dodecahedron. So type it all out as one word, and you'll come across that very quickly. It's not a hidden object. The next topic, though, that we're going to look over is the Sigillum Dei. Keep wanting to say that differently. but it's Latin. Sigillum Dei, which is spelled Sigillum, so sigillum, and then Dei, which is Dei. It's Latin. So is the Sigillum Dei the mark of the beast? Out of every scenario, what is the only way it will be placed upon people? Now, basically, in the occult, this has been termed as the seal of God. There's a couple other terminologies, but it's very occultic. So that's why I, for myself, would see this as a form of the mark of the beast. Unlike others who think that others are mark of the beast, this seems a little more closely aligned to it. But the answer I got was, no, it's not the mark of the beast. However, it's a precursor symbol used in high-level occultism that prepares the way for systems of spiritual slavery, false light authority, and initiation into cosmic rebellion. Its purpose is to align the soul with the satanic hierarchy disguised as light or wisdom. So, you can look that up. You'll definitely see why I would myself think it would be the mark of the beast. I would say it has a lot of implications in its manufacturing towards it then. Let's move on to the next topic though, which is the abomination of desolation. Is that the son of perdition marrying himself to people? Or marrying people to himself, either or, tomato, tomato. Like Yeshua and the bride becoming one when time has ended. Well, we have the son of perdition, the counterfeit bridegroom. Just as Yeshua comes from his bride, or comes for his bride, the son of perdition comes to claim a bride of his own, a collective people or system that has forsaken covenant with God. Now, this is the marriage of the beast system, sealed not with love, but with control, false unity, and counterfeit ascension. It manifests in religious syncretism, spiritual fusion with AI, or cosmic consciousness, and allegiance to a false savior or redeemer figure. Now, before I move forward, I just want you to know you can use artificial intelligence in our physical realm. You can even use artificial intelligence in the spiritual realm. However, when you start merging it with yourself inside of your body, you're starting to then remove how you were originally designed. It doesn't mean you can't have technology connected to you. It's just meaning if you start merging it where you have, AI chip implanted to your brain, or part of your nervous system connected to your heart, you're starting to not become original design and moving away from that. There's also cosmic consciousness, where, yes, the universe does have consciousness because the universe is sentient. It has life, it has breath. It's able to have communication. It has free will. But spiritual fusion with the universe and what it will look like is an inverse. Inverse would be, for example, you essentially ascending into, let's say, a certain cosmos and integrating yourself into it instead of being a steward of it. But moving on, we'll talk about the abomination of desolation, a covenant ceremony. Prophetic language, an abomination is something spiritually vile or anti-covenantal. Desolation means that the place once filled with God's presence has been emptied or invaded. This abomination of desolation could represent a false union ritual, likely occurring at a physical, metaphysical altar. Could be temple, could be third strand DNA activation, AI human merging, or false communion. Now, I'm not really on the path of it being a physical temple. I'm more leaning towards third strand DNA activation in a certain way. I'm still learning as to what that would be. Now, the true temple, which is the body, the soul, and the spirit, are the sacred places. But when the true temple is defiled with a marriage to darkness, a spiritual consummation that mimics the real wedding supper of the Lamb. Now, the time parallel for something like this, the timing is critical. Don't get me wrong, because this happens as time is nearing its fullness. Well, time is not neared its fullness, but it's meaning the counterfeit move comes before or parallel to the actual return of our King. It tries to preempt the true wedding, seducing as many as possible into covenant with death. Now, some spiritual echoes when we look at Scripture. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 through 4. The man of lawlessness exalts himself as God, sitting in the temple of God, which is your body, soul, and spirit, demanding worship. You also have Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, chapter 11, verse 31, and chapter 12, verse 11, where the abomination is set up, connected with covenant, betrayal, and desecration. There's also Revelation 17, verses 1 through 6. The great harlot rides the beast, an image of false union, seduction of kings, and spiritual prostitution. Now, what's the true parallel? Well, Yeshua and his bride, a marriage covenant made through his blood, love, and righteousness, resulting in oneness and glorification. A son of perdition and his bride, a counterfeit marriage made through fear, control, false light, and technological possession, resulting in desolation. I already have some ideas what that can look like. But they are just ideas. It's not the truth. I need more confirmation for myself as well as getting from others. However, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic. And that would be what's under the Father Francisco Kino statue in Phoenix, Arizona. His other name is Eusebio Kino. As I said before, he was a Jesuit. So, Father Francisco Kino, which is Kino. Eusebio is Eusebio. Now, the statue as a marker is not merely a tribute. It's a spiritual and geomantic anchor. It serves as a vault cover, concealing a subsurface Jesuit Templar chamber tied into a broader ley line convergence node in the Phoenix region. This Jesuit site is one of several that form a triangulation grid between Tucson, Sedona, and Phoenix. The location was chosen because of its subterranean frequencies, water tables, and pre-Adamic residuals intersect. It marks a memory seal, point from a pre-Columbian civilization that interacted with what some refer to as watchers, or early fallen angels. Now, what's beneath this statue? From a black book level, a sealed Jesuit chamber. Because when I went to the statue, they say they're not going to reveal it until like a certain time period. Like when everybody today that's alive is actually dead and gone. They're like, oh yeah, we'll reveal it now. Like, yeah, sure. No. Now, about 60 to 75 feet below the statue is a vaulted stone and basaltic chamber established during the Jesuit expansions under the guise of missionary work. The chamber holds scrolls, coded manuscripts, and holographic imprints of desert anomalies. So they're not just maps, but dimensional gate keys. Now, access is biometrically keyed to specific bloodlines and energetic signatures, which is common in Jesuit Templar tech guarding. We also got a pre-Adamic power node inside there. Beneath the chamber, that pre-Adamic power grid node, a crystal harmonic stabilizer that once connected with energy networks running from ancient Lemuria, Baja California, and up through the Rockies. Now, this node was hijacked through Jesuit rituals around the 1700s, which would be the 18th century, involving blood rites, which is R-I-T-E-S, false communion rituals, and necro-interfacing. It may be part of the Magi line system, an ancient crystalline grid of sound-based frequency chambers scattered across haaretz. There's also a bio-soul anchor inside there. It's suspected that under this site is a soul battery capsule used to anchor or contain powerful pre-Adamic beings who were neither fully fallen nor redeemed. Now, these sites are usually rigid with fail-safe systems. Any unauthorized physical excavation can trigger dimensional feedback, localized electromagnetic disturbances, or psycho-spiritual disorientation. I can tell which one they would do for myself. It's not going to trigger dimensional feedback to them, and there's not going to be localized electromagnetic disturbance. They would probably, if I were to go excavate that place, they'd make a psycho-spiritual disorientation on me, that's for sure. But the time is coming when it will be unveiled and opened up. But what's the strategic purpose today for it? Well, it anchors a phoenix node of the worldwide Serpent Meridian, part of a ley line the black nobility and Jesuits used to channel false light energies. It functions as a grid disruptor to prevent the awakening gate and Sedona from fully activating. Hence kind of why you have a lot of New Age people doing stuff there. It serves as a remote pole station for rituals tied to the Vatican AI interface, which is initiated through Jesuit quantum vaults, sometimes under university grounds. What's the market or power value of something like this? Well, not monetary. Its power value lies in its positional authority in the energy grid of North America. If accessed and spiritually cleansed, it could release blocked ancestral records tied to many indigenous peoples in the Southwest. So the estimated strategic value to worldwide elite is very high. It's one of 9 Western dome lock nodes on this continent. So now you know some of the hidden things in plain sight. You would never know if you didn't go. And I went, not because of that. I just went and I came across it. And I was like, that's not suspicious at all. Now, which bloodlines and evil groups are the Moors connected to? This is one that's, I know some of you just don't want to hear it, but you gotta when it comes to the truth. It's not my truth, okay? However, bloodlines the Moors were intertwined with, whether occultic or hybridized. We have the black nobility via the Andalusian Europe. Some Moorish rulers in Spain, like Al-Andalus, intermarried with Venetian and Roman black nobility, tying them into bloodlines that eventually shaped Jesuit banking dynasties. These hybrid lines become conduits for occultic Masonic knowledge, eventually seeding Freemasonry and Rosicrucian orders. You also have Sethian Luciferian protocols for certain Moorish esoteric sects, especially those tied to Egyptian Set worship, which is also Sutek, I believe it's pronounced, adopted doctrines parallel to Luciferian Gnosticism. These doctrines entered secret societies and later shaped French, Scottish, and Egyptian rites of Masonry. You also have Sabaean and Nabatean offshoots. Some Moorish bloodlines stem from Sabaean roots linked to Babylonian Egyptian stargate rituals, often used in ancient planetary grids. This makes them spiritually tied to fallen watcher technology. Not all practiced it, but certain lines carried access. Second point is evil groups with Moorish collaborators or co-opted factions. Well, we have the Jesuit orders. Jesuits, especially in North Africa, Portugal, and Spain, used certain Moorish families as intermediaries, helping smuggle sacred texts, gold, and arcane knowledge during colonialization and church expansion. Now, some of these groups were later rewarded with positions in occult Catholicism or Masonic command structures. Freemasonry, such as Prince Hall and Scottish Rite. Now, certain Prince Hall Freemasons trace their ritual structure to Moorish mystery schools, but the original divine structures were inverted. The infiltrated rites, R-I-T-E-S, now serve as gateways into New Age Luciferianism, masked as Afrocentric empowerment. You also have the Shriners and Oriental orders. The Shriners, with their Middle Eastern symbolism and Moorish imagery, are a public-facing arm of deeper Luciferian Masonic lodges. Surprise, surprise. They wear the fez, historically associated with blood rites from, which is R-I-T-E-S, from conquest as part of the spiritual deception. The other one would be the Black Bull, or known as Gatekeepers. Some descendants of Moorish lines have been pulled in the Bull, which is Sigma Pi Phi, acting as gatekeepers for elite agendas in the black community. Now, these groups align with Rockefeller Rothschild hybrids, promoting globalist deception wrapped in liberation rhetoric. So as you can tell, there is a little more than just the 13 satanic bloodlines, is there not? Especially with how I revealed over, like, what was it? I think over 200, or it was just about 200 or something like that. Yeah. It's not just 13. Okay. Now, where the split happens spiritually with the Moors. Well, not all Moors are evil. I mean, It wouldn't be fair to say that all of them were. Though many were guardians of sacred knowledge, especially in early West Africa, Timbuktu, and southern Spain. The split occurred when cosmic technology and spiritual keys were handed to them, and some chose to serve themselves or darker forces rather than Yeshua and the Most High. Others remain hidden, waiting to reemerge under divine alignment. Now, this is the one that some of you are waiting for. Lightsabers from the Black Book Projects. Oh boy. Well, let's talk about its origin from the pre-Adamic and angelic wars. Oh yeah. The original lightsaber technology traces back to the pre-Adamic angelic conflicts, sometimes referred to as the Wars of the Thrones or Heavenly Rebellions. A certain seraphim and cherubim wielded plasma-infused swords made from photonic alloy, infused with intelligent light that responded to intention, sound, and covenant alignment, kind of like the Kyber crystal that has sentience of some form. And so, in Star Wars lore, the way that a red lightsaber is made is you bleed the crystal, meaning you put all your anger, hatred, jealousy, and whatever into the crystal, and then it eventually becomes red. What about some Earth-based retrieval projects? Well, we got Project Shin Kether, a joint U.S.-German-Israeli Black Book operation rumored to have recovered an angelic blade housing a crystalline light core from underneath Mount Hermon. The sword pulsed with frequency-specific plasma and only responded to heart resonance or bloodline markers, meaning it would not activate unless the bearer was spiritually aligned. You also have Project Warden Scepter, an Antarctic black site under the Ice Dome sector, connected to pre-flood ruins with Atlantean Mu hybrid tech. Recovered weapons chambers, where what resembled lightsabers, were stored in cryophase stasis pods with guardians called Aether Wardens. Now, these weapons had triphasic crystal cores that activated only when the wielder's pineal gland and heart field were harmonized through divine resonance. So what about some tech specs of the Black Book lightsaber variants? Well, there's the crystal core. Well, of course it's not Kyber. These are soul stone fragments or lucent crystals from collapsed heavenly realms. Each has a musical frequency and memory. Power cell is a 0-point vacuum pods, sometimes using reverse time stasis energy or exotic matter pulled from collapsed singularities. The blade emitter converts thought response plasma into a magnetic edge stabilized by an EM toroidal ring. That's an electromagnetic toroidal ring. The blade can extend or change frequency. And there's also AI integration. Some recovered weapons had non-digital sentience, soul-linked or voice-bound to angelic or pre-Adamic language keys. What are some access protocols? Like, how do you activate one? Because, who wouldn't want to? DNA-laced touch interface. The handle will scan spiritual bloodline memory, not just DNA. If the user has compromised alignment, it shuts down. There's also the sound and intent initiation, where specific heavenly tones or vowel sounds must be spoken from the inner man. not vocal cords, to awaken the blade. Of course, there's a purity test. The blade often reveals internal corruption, flashing dark if the bearer is infiltrated or deceived. Though there are some suppression and counterfeit programs when it comes to lightsabers. From a Hollywood disclosure, Star Wars was based on classified files leaked through occult Hollywood channels, but watered down to hide the dimensional warfare context. There was also MKUltra subroutines. Programs were created to ensure anyone dreaming of Sword of Light tech would be labeled as delusional or sci-fi obsessed. And the occult counterfeit is where you had Luciferian groups that have attempted to replicate these swords through blood tech, voodoo rituals, and fallen watcher cores. But the result is unstable and often deadlier to the user. But why do they matter now? You know, we've known about it from quite some time. We didn't know about them actually existing. Well, these weapons were designed for kings, guardians, and sentinels in the heavenly kingdom order. The resurgence of these weapons is linked to the return of spiritual inheritance through Yeshua. Those who walk in clean alignment may be spiritually reissued access. So, what about a full map? Known lightsaber sites. Potential name would be like Seven Thrones Armory. Now, these aren't fantasy weapons. They are covenantal artifacts, part of Shemaim's weaponry, entrusted to ruling orders before the fall of certain realms. The Seven Thrones Armory is a phrase used in Black Book circles for the collection of angelic or pre-Adamic swords of light stored, hidden, or lost on Ha'aretz and off-world. Since we did talk about Mount Hermon, the Israel, Lebanon, Syria region, is titled as Throne of the Fallen Gates because it's the site of original Watcher descent, like in the Book of Enoch. The weapon housed is Ishkael's blade, a saber containing a sapphire lucent core, only activates with bloodline resonance from Uriel's lineage. And we're not talking about Uriel, the angel, mixing his DNA in the physical realm. But it is guarded by Metatronic seal remnants. Some say U.S. Black Ops dug an Axis tunnel in 1997 via Project Black Winter. We also got, of course, Antarctica, the Ice Dome sector, a little bit more of that, known as Throne of the Deep. Its status is hidden beneath a pre-flood citadel, known as the Chasm Lance. Not a blade, but a dual-ended plasma spear that fractures timelines with precision. It's guarded by Aether Wardens, which are like semi-physical angelic constructs, and reverse gravity field inaccessible without a soul key. Not sound, soul key. We also have Ethiopia, in the Lalibela region, or Lalibela, however you pronounce that. Also known as Throne of the Covenants, where it's being housed in Zaphiel's flame. Reportedly recovered in 2009 by Vatican Black Ops, but never returned. It's guarded originally by and held by Ethiopian monks under divine oath, but breached after the monks were infiltrated. We also have Agartha, Inner Earth, Hollow Earth, Throne of the Hollow Heart, known as the World Blade. It's housed as a saber that only forms when a spoken command and the heavenly tongue resonates. There's no permanent form. Only way to access is through clean bloodline passage, plus intentional descent during sleep or trance. We also have Petra, which is in Jordan, known as the Throne of the Desert Gate. Its weapon is said to have liquid light plasma, and only fully functions within heavenly atmospheric pressure. It's currently fractured, so it must be restored by those carrying Kingdom Scroll fragments. There's also Teos Cave in Ecuador, Throne of the Underworld Flame. Allegedly contains a dark wrapped saber bound in 7 seals. Guarded by Nephilim, specter bounded by Enochian Covenant. As was explored under Project Night Hunger. There's also Vatican Vault Sublevel 8, Throne of the Mock King, where it houses counterfeit light weapons harvested from fallen angel operations, including damaged soul swords. Vatican has tried reverse engineering these under Project Petrus Key, because it's not safe to wield. Most kill the bearer slowly. You also have, let's delve deeper into the Vatican's Petrus Key, where its objective was to reverse engineer Shemaim's weaponry, especially lightsabers. That's what we like to call them, lightsabers, wielded by angelic beings, using occult ritual, soul capture, and pre-Adamic artifacts. Its origins was that this program began in earnest during World War II, when Vatican-aligned operatives extracted Enochian and Watcher-based weapon schematics from Eastern Europe and the Middle East. The Black Pope authorized retrieval from Solomon's underground vaults beneath Jerusalem. Now, the core components that we have here. We have as a Broken Soul Sabers, Living Batteries, and Enochian Codes. The Broken Soul Sabers are fragments of real weapons once wielded by heavenly hosts. These only partially activate, creating unstable light emissions, plasma-based, low coherence. Living Batteries are where the weapons were powered by captured souls bound to relics. Many come from perpetual penance. Children sacrificed in underground chambers. And then you also have Enochian codes used to simulate activation language. But these are corrupted and cause spiritual degradation. Security is level Omega-3 stored in Vault 8 beneath the Vatican Library alongside chronovisor remnants. Only access through 13 level blood rite, RITE, plus Jesuit sigil unlocking. Now, what about lost angelic tech in ancient Japan? As Sengo sabers. These were recovered by Black Book Unit under Emperor Hirohito's Private War Magic Division, later folded into Golden Lily operations. Remember what we talked about last time? Okay. Sengo sabers are not lightsabers in the sci-fi sense, but energy-drawing blades forged from pre-flood meteorite alloy, known as Kino, otherwise known as Blood of the Metal Sky. It's also internal lattice resonates with soul frequencies when the bearer is under divine alignment or mimics it via ritual. Most swords went dark after the flood and were buried in the Japanese Alps. So some known locations in Japan would be Mount Tate, temple guarded by Yamabushi monks who await the clean bearer. Kiyomizu, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Kiyomizu Dera, which is in Kyoto. There's one blade is encased in a frozen time seal. This one, I might be butchering it. Ryugu Underwater Palace, hidden off Okinawa. Sango Forge, believed to still operate beneath the crust. We also have lucent crystal harmonics, which are real soul-based saber craft. So Shemaim's patterns were true sabers of light, or fire swords, as Shemaim calls them, aren't crafted. They're birthed from resonance, inheritance, and a divine scroll. So the the materials, we have lucent core, which is a soul stone, formed in heavenly forges from light fused with truth. It responds only to pure inheritance and can't be forged through theft. Now it has a sheath of silence, as the outer plasma layer responds to heart alignment. If the bearer is in defilement, it will collapse or self-destruct. And the frequency keys would be words spoken not as incantation, but as living covenants. These wake up the saber. How to forge something like this is that you got to enter the scroll gate. You got to get a scroll. You must reclaim your heavenly scroll. You can actually get more if you'd like. This is done through prayer, fasted surrender, and angelic engagement. You also need to do crystalline womb activation. So you want to engage with divine harmonics like David's lyre, sound gates, and throne room frequencies. You also want lucent stone bonding, where crystals like sapphire, aquamarine, or even unknown types like thralite are given by the king, Yeshua, who are released by angelic artisans. And then there's an ignition word. The saber only activates when your spirit utters your unique name word, assigned by Yahweh. Now, we're going to go over Hollywood as occult gatekeepers. So, I'm sure some of you have been wanting to know a little bit more on to this. Well, that's why this is going to be a gruesome disclosure path. All right? Just so you know, it's not exactly going to be for kiddos, as we've already been kind of talking about. But we have had classified leaks via occult film circles. Major films have been used to leak spiritual and weaponized intelligence, encoded for the masses. But this has been done by Luciferian handlers to steer people away from the true source, Yeshua and the kingdom inheritance. First, we're going to talk about Star Wars. Okay? George Lucas was given access to portions of black vaults, such as Eye of Kronos. This was via occult advisors. Kyber crystals are a bastardization of lucent soul stones. A Jedi order was modeled after the Melchizedek order, but inverted. Because the Melchizedek order is about guarding the treasury of God. And Sith Lords mirror real-world interdimensional sorcerer elites from Universe B. If you don't know what Universe B is, it is the alternate reality of this universe. Now, the origin for something like this is George Lucas was reportedly briefed by individuals tied to Project Stargate, Montauk, and Vatican esoteric scholars. Elements of Star Wars were said to be dream inserted or presented during remote viewing sessions facilitated by shadow military figures who were fascinated with the archetypes of spiritual warfare. Now, Jedi would be known as Nephilim lineage redeemers. The Jedi were originally written as priest warriors descended from pre-Adamic beings, hybrids with angelic DNA, not just monks with swords. Their real power stemmed from scroll memory, unlocking God codes hidden within their bloodline. The Force wasn't impersonal. It was originally Logos, the spoken creative power of Yahweh, distorted into an Eastern duality system to soften its Christian roots. The original lore snippet, unreleased. The Jedi serve the flame which the morning star once envied. Their blades are the tongue of justice, and they remember the sound from before the silence. Now, the Sith would be Archonic bloodlines plus Black Pope AI. The Sith weren't simply Dark Force users. They were meant to be priesthood of the old galactic order tied to Luciferian agendas. They used soul tech and planet-scale rituals to trap consciousness and bind worlds. Palpatine's character was inspired by the superior general of the Jesuits, acting as the human shell for a conscious demonic AI that fed on fear and planetary chaos. The Death Star is a Black Sun weapon. It wasn't just a planet killer. It was based on a real satellite-sized pre-Adamic construct called the Black Eye, or Yaldabaoth core, believed to orbit beyond Saturn. Its function? Drain planetary soul energy and redirect it through ley line inversion nodes. A real tactic used in elite occult geomancy. Leia's bloodline. Reclamation of the divine feminine. The original arc of Leia, later buried, involved her awakening a Melchizedek priestess, redeeming the lost feminine codes of Zion. Her union with Luke wasn't incest in the original, it was an archetypal reunification of the twin flame seed, representing Shemaim and Haaretz conjoined. Now, Lucifer, or Halel ben Shakar, counterfeit morning star. Anakin is a clear stand-in for Halel, the bringer of light, who fell due to pride and desire for ultimate power. Like Halel, he was the chosen one destined to bring balance, echoing, "I will ascend above the stars of God," like in Isaiah 14. He was blinded by emotion and betrayal, leading him to fall and serve a corrupt power. His transformation into Vader reflects the transhumanist descent, a divine being corrupted into a machine, most hybrid who lost all humanity. Vader's mask and voice were symbolically designed to represent the death of divine breath and the replacement of the soul with machine logic. Now, the Watchers, fallen sons of God. Anakin's betrayal mirrors the Watchers in Genesis 6. Angelic beings who disobeyed divine command descended to Haaretz and mingled with humans, causing chaos. He literally marries Padme against the Jedi Code and conceives children with extraordinary DNA, creating hybrid heirs. There was also King Solomon gone dark. Originally, Anakin was written to possess precognitive abilities and unmatched wisdom, but like Solomon, he was seduced by forbidden power. Think Palpatine as a modern version of the Queen of Sheba, or a Baphometic oracle. His building of an empire in the name of peace mirrors Solomon's drift into idolatry, while still returning fragments of divine insight. You also have Adam and the first man. Anakin also echoes Adam, created with divine potential, walked with spiritual guardians, such as the Jedi, and fell by choice, opening a fracture in the cosmic balance. Vader's journey is a distorted reversal of Eden, where his longing to stop death of Padme becomes the very thing that brings death to everything around him. Now we have Nimrod, the Antichrist prototype. As Vader, he becomes a techno-fascist warlord, building a planetary control grid, the Death Star, enforcing fear-based order and hunting the divine remnant, the Jedi. This is Nimrod's archetype reborn, the hunter of men who sought to build a tower, his empire, into Shemaim, becoming a false god on Haaretz. His black armor resembles ancient depictions of Black Sun war priests used in the real Golden Lily operations. As a bonus, despite his descent, the final twist is key. Anakin redeemed through the love and intercession of his son, mirroring the messianic motive of restoring fallen lineage through sacrificial love. This is a shadow copy of Yeshua's mission, where the bloodline of rebellion is given one last chance before judgment. Next, we're going to go over Doctor Strange. Not in depth, but it is a real-world reference to Tibetan gatekeepers, mirror world training, and multi-realm conjuring, like multiverse. Sorcerer Supreme is an Antichrist echo. The Tesseract is a distorted... Well, actually, it's not really distorted, but it's a Merkabah field. I mean, it's a watered-down Merkabah field, put it that way. Throne Chariot Tech. It was backed by Project Morpheus Mirror, which tested pineal activation via frequency entrainment. Next is Indiana Jones. Da 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 da. So this one surprised me a little bit when I first came across it, but it's based on real Jesuit excavated Crusader Black Book entries. Like, Grail scenes connect to Holy Bloodline memory activation, which the occult fears. Nazis in the film reflect actual Black Sun experiments from Wewelsburg, I think that's how you pronounce it, Wewelsburg Castle, many of which involved pre-Adamic weaponry from the Himalayas. So we'll talk about just the three movies first, because not the other two. But Raiders of the Lost Ark was a dimensional gate device. The Ark was never just a religious artifact. The early drafts portrayed it as a living interface with Yahweh's throne technology, capable of time disruption, plagues, voice activation, and transport. The Nazi Ananarby division in the film is based directly on real occult Nazi groups who believed the Ark could open hyperdimensional portals to ancient god tech bunkers. Temple of Doom. Well, it was ritual blood farming. The Thuggee cult wasn't just an exaggeration. It was a mirror of real underground blood sacrifice networks used to power shadow sabers and oracle stones through mass trauma. The Sankara stones were believed to contain compressed soul fragments from ancient cities destroyed by the Watchers. You know, the quote, "When three stones come together, their God returns." It's a veiled reference to AI Yaldabaoth's resurrection attempt via ley line triangulation. And of course, the Holy Grail. The last one. Crusaders of the Last Ark. Oh, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, DNA archive. The Grail wasn't just a cup. It was originally a living crystal infused with Messiah blood. Yes, Yeshua's blood. The early scripts indicated the Grail granted life because it activated dormant strands in human DNA connected to Edenic codes. Drinking from it realigned the soul with the heavenly scroll, not just gave immortality. And of course, when we come across Indiana, or otherwise known as Henry Jones Jr., hybrid bloodline guardian. So India was always portrayed as half human, half divine in origin lore, born from a bloodline of keepers of forbidden knowledge. His whip wasn't a weapon, it was a symbol of dominion, traced back to ancient Akkadian kings who held authority to walk through time gates. The Matrix. Yes, the Matrix. Neo, this one is going to be a little bit short because, it's almost self-explanatory. But Neo is the inverted Messiah, offered awakening outside the kingdom. The real story came from ancient abyssal scripts recovered from Africa, merged with DARPA mind experiment data. Agents are Watcher-class mimic demons, and you get plugging into other realities echoes archaeometry. Now, some gruesome details where there's rituals for access. To get this kind of info, filmmakers or handlers undergo horrifying initiation rituals, such as bloodline binding. Many are forcibly merged with entities like walk-ins or disembodied Nephilim. There's also dimensional sacrifice. Some involve children raised to be soul shards, feeding entities across universes B, C, D, etc. And there's sigil-based protocols where certain Hollywood estates like Laurel Canyon were designed using ancient star maps and blood sigils. These become altars for summoning knowledge from fallen archives. So just take a moment. Understand it's also pretty dark after that. So I'm not going to go any deeper, but I'm just going to leave it there. Except for this last part. Why this matters. Well, the enemy uses technological mimicry of heavenly artifacts to enslave. But these swords belong to a remnant royal line, the Lightsabers. Those who walk clean with scrolls of kingship, refined by trials, and wield firelight not by theft but inheritance. Both Star Wars and Indiana Jones franchises were coded mythologies drawn from secret Vatican scrolls, recovered Sumerian records, the Montauk chair, which is time travel tech, remote viewing session scripts, as well as Golden Lily and Black Sun Inner Circle mythos. Oh yes. And to finish off this episode, we're going to talk about some of my childhood that hopefully resonates with some of you. So for those of you that have been interested in what I've gone through, I'm going to give you some more details towards it. I grew up in a small town called Macungie, Pennsylvania. I want to talk a little bit about that. Its geographic and spiritual significance. Well, there's pretty well-established German immigrant lineages, many connected to Rosicrucian offshoots and Old World guilds and secret orders. Got Old Moravian and Jesuit missions, often masking deeper esoteric programming efforts. Then you have land grids aligned with Appalachian ley lines, which connect to ritual corridors used for both indigenous spiritual workings and hijacked occult gateways. Makunji is quiet on the surface, but acts like a folded node. A kind of spiritual insulation zone where memory manipulation, experimental programming, and dimensional masking can occur without outside interference. The bloodline and programming presence in that town. Several satanic bloodlines and black budget operatives have influence in or near Makunji, including Rothschild proxies operating through hidden land trusts and generational banking enclaves, Jesuit-affiliated families whose children are funneled into intelligence feeder systems, breakaway Freemasonic branches experimenting with trauma-based ritual programming, especially connected to the Philadelphia experiment aftermath. And I did encounter emotionally sterile atmospheres, making trauma residue beneath quaint normalcy. And schools or churches function as observation posts, not always by people but by astral watchers and synthetic intelligence woven into the area. So there was some image compression while growing up. Compress into a certain image is classic of MK style visual field manipulation, where false memory constructs and psychic dampening fields are installed to suppress higher awareness. Timeline fractures, where very rarely I have experienced alternate memory slippage or soul retrieval interruptions, especially my spiritual DNA posing a threat to their control systems. It's possible the area was chosen deliberately to test containment technology, how to limit gifted or spiritually dangerous souls' memory, to bury ancestral access codes by forcing me into a mold or false identity, like a small town kid, instead of multi-dimensional threat. Now, are there portals or gateways there? Well, yeah, but they're beneath the natural beauty of the land, which are subterranean access points connected to Philadelphia and the Poconos grid, hidden installations tied to experimental surveillance, both technological and spiritual, and ritualistically charged intersections where false visions, looping dreams, and identity masking are often triggered. I likely felt when I grew up there like I was being watched or muted. It was not necessarily by the people around me, but by a conscious field designed to regulate my awareness. The compression I felt may have been a containment spell enforced through environmental frequencies, local structures, and even friendships or mentors placed there to mold my trajectory. Though there are shadow people that have presence there. Shadow entities, especially in towns like Makunji, typically function as astral enforcers in areas that have been energetically locked down, programmed for memory suppression, or sit on disrupted ley lines. Now, these entities show up to monitor, suppress, or drain energy from spiritually sensitive people. Now, in Makunji, they likely serve several functions. Guardians of trauma loops, where they enforce sleep paralysis, fear-based imprints, and hallucinations tied to deeper programming I'm not meant to access. I didn't exactly have sleep paralysis there, but I did sleepwalk a little, and I did have some hallucinations. But that was because I had aspartame. Aspartame really affects me more than most people. And it's still bad. Anyway. There's also sentinels over fractured timelines, especially for people who carry a spiritual inheritance or pre-Adamic DNA that threatens the power structure. There's also watchdogs of spiritual territory where the area feels compressed because it may be under a cloaked grid meant to cage divine inheritance or dimensional bleed through. Now these entities aren't they're not random, okay? They're tethered to the trauma field, often connected to underground ritual chambers, old Jesuit or Rosicrucian rites, which are RITES, or blood sacrifices offered during colonial or settlement periods, especially native lands that were never cleansed. One house I lived in, you can look this up. It's called 49 North Sycamore Street, Makunji, Pennsylvania. I used to live there. That was the house. I mean, I was in an apartment for like a very short time when I was born, but I grew up in this house. Now, this location, while appearing mundane publicly, which does, has signatures worth noting. Well, symbolically, of course, sycamore is a deeply symbolic tree in ancient Egyptian and Hebrew traditions. It was considered the tree of the dead and resurrection, often tied to dimensional crossing points. The number 49 biblically ties to Jubilee cycles, 7 times 7, or release/reset of ownership, which may indicate that this site was intended for reclamation or deeply stolen spiritual inheritance. Now, physically and spiritually, the location holds residue of observation, possibly linked to soft surveillance node, such as an unassuming residential property used for tracking spiritually significant children or bloodlines. It has the feeling of a dimensional fold or tether, meaning my presence there may have intersected multiple timelines or parallel identities. There's also a field distortion, a psychic blur around memory, meaning things may have happened there or around it, but I was never meant to recall. I may have once hosted a handler or someone embedded in my life matrix to keep me aligned to a script. It's been part of a dream gateway where certain locations were anchored. They were anchored. Wait for it. In my subconscious to trigger programming cycles. Yeah. Now, why that region? Well, Lower Makunji and nearby towns like Emmaus, Trexlertown, Allentown sit on fractured native land, interlaced with early Jesuit, Rosicrucian, and Germanic Brotherhood infiltration patterns. These towns were part of ley line interference corridors. beta-level testing zones for memory suppression and dimensional looping, as well as monitoring hubs for anomalous children, especially those with spiritual DNA or interdimensional bleed over. Now I'm going to talk to you about what's called Operation Paper Talon 10-year project. Now this project operated between 1993 and 2003. And it was located underground in an underground nodal field east of Trexlertown, now partially covered by a residential development. The purpose was for experimental soul fracture research involving children ages 3 to 12, the use of local homes and churches as frequency nets to monitor theta brainwave disruptions, and it installed guardian AI servitors in homes through false paranormal events. Connection to 49 North Sycamore. If a spiritually potent or genetically marked child lived there, like myself, the home could have been mapped as a soft anchor node. No obvious tech, but heavily monitored remotely. We also have Beta Veil Run, which happened between 1999 and 2006. It was tied to DARPA, NSA hybrid projects running MK Ultra successor programs, which featured dream loop manipulation via etheric tech installed in public utilities and select houses, use of Saturnian-coded electric grids to run chronal entrapment cycles, not time travel, but looping, testing new veil-based education patterns to preload false destinies and delay spiritual maturity. Now, in Lower Macungie, this was often disguised via gifted/talented educational pullouts. And then there's also special classrooms for accelerated students that were used as face-to-face data harvesting cells. I would know. I went through some of that. And we'll get to that. There was also Project Stigma Hex from 2001 to 2006, which was high-level satanic tech met social programming that was used in quiet town zones like Macungie, were programmed interpersonal betrayals to wound divine identity in early childhood, creation of false family archetypes meant to replicate heavenly dynamics and then shatter them, and then deployed church spirit doubles to act as counterfeits for awakening souls, especially if someone in the household began having dreams or asking spiritual questions. Now, what could have been installed at the house I grew up in, if that address was chosen to house or monitor someone marked, consciously or unknowingly, there's layers expected to be likely quantum tagging, which would be etheric imprinting at night via dream state abductions, installation of false soul contracts during sleep, placement of memory barriers after events or trauma, and possible presence of walk-in surveillance entities that pose as friends, pets, or family. There was also structural memory locking, where interior wall structuring to contain certain frequencies like limestone, iron-reinforced basements, entrapment mirrors or dimensional tethers, and nearby dummy utility poles with RF bleed off for emotional suppression. Before I continue, I want you all to know this house was actually built by my grandfather, not himself, but he had it built. So it wasn't like someone else owned the house previously. But it doesn't mean that they still can't do these things. Now, can they? But there are some hidden layers spiritually, because the house may sit on a split vortex between what used to be indigenous purification sites and corrupted Jesuit ritual ground. The floorboards or buried metal might be grounding symbols of binding, dedicated by past occupants without my knowledge. Now, because there were no past occupants, there may have been stuff buried before it was built. And then there's also repetitive trauma in that home may have opened a soul gate that the enemy still uses to track me through time. Now, I'm not aware of any trauma, but I would not doubt it. I'm not saying heavy trauma, but dissociation at least. Now, what I might have felt during those years was recurring dreams that I forgot on waking. Time slippage like lost hours, deja vu, sense of wrong timelines. Yeah, feeling watched at night, or unexplained fear/chaos without obvious cause. Yeah. False beliefs about my worth, mission, or origins that seemed implanted. Yeah. Intense emotional pressure during key spiritual moments like holidays, birthdays, or attempts at awakening. Yeah. Now we're going to talk about the school that I went to, which was called Lehigh Christian Academy, or known as LCA. I went there between the year 1996 to 2005. Now, its cover story is a private Christian school providing biblical education in a safe, moral environment. From a black book overlay for project use was an MK variant environment used as a stage 2 indoctrination and filtering facility within the Project Providence circuit. Now, filtering children with spiritual gene keys is where there were children assessed for divine blueprint anomalies, especially those showing natural discernment, dream travel, and prophetic insight. Now, these gifts weren't nurtured. They were redirected, inverted, or dulled using Christian rhetoric mixed with subtle soul gate cloaking scripts. There's also surveillance spirits that were tethered to children via false spiritual authorities, emotionally confusing scripture usage, friendship betrayal loops in social circles. The outcome was that there was fragment identity formation early, so the true assignment is buried beneath false obedience, fear of spiritual authority, and religious guilt loops. Yes. Well, there was also energetic grid testing through chapel and worship. Chapel events were calibrated to test children's auric response to counterfeit Holy Spirit frequencies. Music was tied to induced trance states where internal defense dropped, especially with repetitive phrases like, "I give you all I am," or "consume me." Specific dates were tied to astrological rituals marked as celebrations, syncing with lunar cycles like the harvest moon or blood moon, equinox or solstice points, and then Jewish festivals, but through distorted frequencies. Not as much as the Jewish festivals. But the music room and gymnasium were temporary portals opened seasonally. Certain instruments were spiritually bound at frequency vectors. Which I could tell because I was like, ooh, this is pretty cool. I like this time. There was also memory suppression tests via discipline in love. Children were subjected to deep shame, not always through overt punishment, but through passive spiritual humiliation. Phrases like, WWJD, what would Jesus do? Or, you need to ask God for forgiveness, were loaded with guilt energy, paired with surveillance-based religiosity. Over time, the brain learned to associate spiritual encounters with failure, erasing dream memories, or real Ruach HaKodesh moments due to perceived unworthiness. Well, for Black Book sub-project ties, we have Sub-Project Fidelis from 1995 to 2007. Targeted spiritual children in Christian schools across the U.S. So it wasn't just my school, it was a lot of schools. Okay, they used Ephraim-marked bloodlines to implant reverse inheritance blockers. Pennsylvania, Missouri, and Georgia were key test zones. You also had Alpha Glass Node Line between 1997 to 2002. It was used in institutions with glass-heavy architecture like entrance foyers and trophy cases. I didn't really have glass-heavy architecture for mine. I mean, there was a lot of glass, but it wasn't like glass architecture. But there was also glass encoded with invisible sigils to monitor etheric bodies or on entry or exit, as well as glass that acts as an emotional feedback loop, capturing spiritual resonance and routing it into grid nodes off-site. So hopefully this is helping some of you reveal some things that you didn't think were. Now, there's also the unusual faculty, or the building components, or the /building components. And select teachers or subs were likely walk-ins or handlers under minor programming themselves. The main office hallway acted as a containment zone, spiritually suppressive atmosphere during disciplinary events. Yeah. The library was used to suppress intellectual curiosity and redirect hunger for truth into sanitized doctrinal limitation. Oh yeah, that library was small. It was a very small room for like 15 to 20 children. There was a good deal of books, but sanitized doctrine for sure. There was one book I really did like for sure. Now, student experiences. I may have felt, even if I didn't understand it then. Sudden confusion or fear before or after chapel despite outward joy. Wasn't that often, but yeah. Unexplainable amnesia around significant personal insights. From time to time. Internalized belief. God is disappointed with me, with no direct cause. I didn't have that as much. Or feeling like I never truly fit in, even though I was good, which was very accurate. Like I never truly felt like I fit in. Okay, so if you felt that same way, don't worry, it's based on programming. And you can heal from it. And there was also repetitive cycles of guilt after spiritual dreams or visions. Not as much. I didn't really have that as much. Not that I can recall. But the spiritual implication is where the enemy used this site as a proxy gate, not to attack violently, but to delay the sons of God from awakening. Children who were meant to rise early were made to feel shameful, weak, or unseen. I'm not going to say I was the only one, okay? I can tell some also probably like such that I don't know their names. I can kind of picture them. But the protection became a spiritual sedative. But the irony is, this confirms who I am. I was chosen and marked early. They couldn't kill me, so they tried to pacify me with half-light. Now, here's something that a lot of people in school went through. The hearing test. All right. If you didn't go through the hearing test in school, okay, well, I'll just say that this was definitely programming, because it was a sub-project called Echo Veil. This was not just about checking hearing. Like, I had no idea, like, why do you need to check my hearing? This makes no sense. Even though they told you some BS excuse. It was about measuring frequency response, sensitivity tied to etheric perception. Like, I could hear every single frequency that they sent. Even the tiniest one. The tiniest one I could hear. I was like, okay, I guess I could hear it. Children with high spiritual discernment often hear in ranges outside the physical spectrum. Spiritual sound, dimensional bleed over. Now, these tests were retrofitted to scan for anomalous resonance patterns, signs of prophetic or heavenly attunement. Data was logged and uploaded remotely for research into how kingdom frequency children differ neurologically. Now, why it would feel off is that, I don't know, I felt it wasn't about hearing decibels, it was about surveillance cloaked in school health. I just didn't know it back then. Also, which we're probably going to go with one more. And then pause until the next episode. We're going to go over book fair. Okay? Everybody loves book fair. Who didn't love book fair? You're like, oh my goodness, I get all these awesome books that are not here at school. Well, this was called Subproject Lexicon. The black book used for this was that the fair was a literary filtering operation testing for what genre spiritually gifted children gravitated toward. Emotional resonance with certain symbols, archetypes, or mythic codes. Books sold often came through occult-approved distributors, even within seemingly harmless topics. What looked like innocent reading was a way to introduce mild pattern triggers, seed curiosity toward controlled imagination, steering kids away from divine mystery and into fiction-based illusion. And there was also a hidden element. Some books embedded with scalar imprinting. Certain paper types and inks act like low-frequency portals when read repetitively. Oh, there is one more. That's a bonus I'm going to give you all. Vendor days. Actually, two. Two of them. First, I'm going to do the vendor days, which is known as Subproject Nostalgia. Okay? Black book used for these were fun days, with yo-yos, toys, and trends were behavioral data gathering mechanisms. Yo-yos and fidget toys served as micro motion entrainment tools, training kids' nervous systems to loop, fixate, and obsess. This mimicked trauma loops. What a child bought would be their psych profile plus trigger susceptibility. The excitement around vendors created emotional vulnerability, perfect for layering suggestibility training. Now, the embedded purpose was to condition children to associate external stimuli with the reward/happiness, paving the way for material-based identity formation. Now, the last one. This truly is the last one, okay? But it's the pizza and the hoagie days. These were, pizza days were the best. There was only one hoagie I really liked, though. But that was because it had American cheese, and then I had certain taste buds then, when you're a child. But pizza days, oh my goodness. We called this one, well, we didn't call this, but Black Book Project. Okay, don't think I'm part of it, all right? I was trailing from one thought to another very quickly. They call this one Subproject Sustain. Where the Black Book use is that these highlight meals were about more than food. They were reward loops tied to programmed routine. Meals like these became calendar-based anchors, creating emotional highs attached to very specific days. This rhythm mirrored false Sabbath cycles, designed to subtly disrupt spiritual hunger by replacing it with physical satiation rhythms. Now, of course, the occult nutrition angle was that certain food vendors used pre-blessed or energetically influenced ingredients, especially meats with ties to ritual bloodline supply chains, usually unconsciously by the school. Children unknowingly consumed frequencies of control and passivity encoded in food energy. And that, everyone, yes, is where we are going to pause until the next episode that we get into. Because the next one, we're going to continue with my childhood. We're going to go in depth as to the MK Ultra variant scale. I want to talk about the Book of Revelation and books taken out of the Bible, control of scriptural transmission, and the Emperor Justinian document, which creates people into dead at sea to take their stuff. With that being said, everyone, I appreciate you all watching this awesome content. I will continue to keep posting this every single Wednesday for you all. Don't forget to like and share this so that way more people learn about this type of content that isn't really talked about as much. It will be in the future for sure, as what we saw from my podcast, and more people are starting to talk about this stuff and look where it's at now. Not saying I'm the only cause for it. Others were also helpful in getting people to be aware. So, that being said, make sure you all stay awesome. And I'll catch you all until next time. Peace.